Question, can you hear that noise in the background of my speaker? No?
No, I
Oh,
can only
good.
hear Gail.
Okay, good. Chris is cooking and I didn't want to have it be an issue.
I think I heard a pot rattle.
Can you? Yeah, now he's doing it purposely. Yeah, the kitchen
No
fan.
breaking glasses, Chris.
Yes, the kitchen, the fan, the exhaust fan going, and we didn't have one when we moved in, so we put in one that's very powerful. It literally sucks the door closed.
Nice.
Scared
That's
me one night.
excellent.
The back door opened on its own one night, and I went, ah!
Yeah.
All right. Select board's here. I'm going to grab some paper.
How are you doing, Eric?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Not too bad.
We had a friend come over the other day because they ran out of gas and they were frying stuff in our house, which does not have an exhaust fan. They were frying some eggplant up for eggplant parmesan or something. The whole house is like just eggplant smoke. It's like, it's like really, whatever. It's kind of funny.
Well, part of the reason we put it in is our house is too tight. So we had a new furnace put in many, many years ago. And I was complaining about moisture on our windows. And the guy said, I said, our house is leaking. I got moisture on the windows. He goes, I bet it's not that. And I said, why? He goes, can you smell dinner from the night before when you return home from work after work the next day? And I said, depending on what we cook, yeah. He goes, your house is too tight.
Yeah, well, right.
So either it's leaky house, money flies out the leaks, or because you're heating it, or it's too tight and then you have, other issues, So we just leave a teeny tiny window crack just this much to pull the dry air in from outside.
Well, especially if you burn wood at all. If you burn wood, it's like the wood, the wood stove's always sucking the oxygen out of the house. It's like,
right,
really.
You need a little bit.
Yeah, you got to have a little after a while,
Yeah, you need to breathe oxygen. You need oxygen. You need to breathe it.
Yeah. So Rita's not here tonight, Mike. That's correct. I'm correct about that, right?
Yep. Oh, one more minute. How are you, Linda?
Pretty good. Whoop. Pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. Since there's still snow on the ground, I still have the tree up.
I like it. I like it.
Winter tree.
I like it. Nice. I like it in the background with the lights. It's, it's nice.
I don't know that you can see, but there's there's black bears with Santa hats on them.
I can't see that. Oh.
Hang on, I'll try to do something. Does that help? Probably not. No.
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 It's a winter tree. There's pine cones and black bears on it.
Nice. Perfect.
Oops, now I have my flashlight on. I need to turn that off.
So Melissa, you're driving the bus tonight, is that correct?
Yes.
Good.
I love
That's the right answer. That's the right answer.
Driving the bus. Many buses.
Yeah. Well, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. When Becky comes back, we can start.
Okay.
Although we have the agenda. I don't know if she's run off for something that we need. So I don't want to. Becky, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Somebody, guess it had to be me, loaded the empty black cartridge instead of the new one.
Oh,
We've all
Sorry.
done
Hate when that happens.
that. We've all done that.
I haven't.
Well, he doesn't change toners. So, all right. So shall we call ourselves to order?
Yeah,
Eric,
let's
okay.
do it.
All right. I'm going to open up my screen a little wider so I can see everybody. And all right. So let's review the agenda. We have first up public comment, the discussion of the PCP projects with the Historical Commission, land acquisitions with the Conservation Commission. Then appointment of Barbara Bigelow to the Open Space Committee at 6:15. So I want to make sure we stay on schedule. We have joint meeting of the Select Board, School Committee, and FinCom with the regional assessment. Then minutes for the Select Board, letter to the USDA for the dispatching of geese, and town hall closure, updates on appraisal, and transfer of bond, ending with town administrator updates. Eric, did you have anything that you wanted to switch or add to that? Becky, did we have any last minute things?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Yep.
Yes, we have, Tim just delivered 2 Chapter 90 requests that need to get added.
Okay, shall we do that?
Reimbursements.
Okay.
We can do at the end.
At the end? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, we shall move on to public comment. Does anyone here have a public comment they'd like to share with the Select Board? Okay. All right. So moving on to the discussion with the CPC projects with the board, the Historical Commission Committee, and the Conservation Commission. Would someone like to give us a update or an introduction? Or I just read through the.
Is Penny here?
Yeah, I see Penny and I see Miriam. I see
Okay.
Bridget. Okay. All right. So there is a document that we had received from Penny. Penny, did you want to give a rundown of that, and then we can further, or anybody? No. Okay, I can run us through that. I just gotta open it. Okay, so before the Select Board, we have a proposal for a lot R15, which is on Pelham Hill Road. And it's a Shutesbury Conservation and Open Space Committee with Kestrel Trust for a purchase of a 34-acre forest land with about 2,000 feet frontage on Pelham Hill that runs basically from Baker Road to the Pelham line. So that's what we're talking about.
So this is Penny. As you said, I sent the document out to the Select Board and several other people today. And Melissa, thanks for catching my mistake on the address. I chronically get Pelham Hill and West Pelham mixed up in my mind. So I guess I was just.
I would too if I didn't live on West Pelham.
Well, yeah. And I used to live on West Pelham, so I shouldn't, but I did. So I don't know how carefully all of you looked at the numbers, but this is a fairly remarkable opportunity for the town. Kestrel is committing 70%, 75%, well, actually slightly more than that. I think the town would be paying 22%, and Kestrel would be paying around just over 75% for this parcel. And this is a very unusual division of costs. Usually towns are required, excuse me, I'm cooking dinner. I gotta turn off a timer. Usually towns are asked to contribute substantially more than the 25% that Shutesbury is being asked to contribute to this. So the funding would come from Kestrel's Forest Legacy Fund and from some private donations that they have. And that is the lion's share of the funding. And then we're putting in a CPA request next week for a $50,000 contribution for land purchase. And then the Conservation Commission would contribute $20,000 from its land trust fund. And it's a remarkable piece of property. It has the headwaters of Amethyst Brook. It has a number of wetlands on it, an historic mill. It connects with undeveloped land to the north and to the south, and then is part of a corridor with Quabbin. So it is great for ecological connectivity. And the town has no conservation areas in that corner of Shutesbury, so there's value in that. The goal would be to use the property for passive recreation. And I'll see if you guys have questions.
Okay. Eric, do you have any questions?
It seems like sort of a no-brainer to me, unless somebody can tell me there's an objection out there in the world. I don't know what it would be, but if there is such an objection, I'd love to hear what it is, because I can't see what it would be.
Yeah, I agree. This is a great opportunity for Shutesbury. Miriam, I do see your hand.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple comments to piggyback on what Penny has said. I think we're really fortunate to be looking at a situation where there's the generosity of the Kestrel Land Trust, in addition to being able to access these federal funds that we ordinarily would not have access to. And it's a time-limited, unique opportunity that will not come again, maybe ever. And so there's kind of a confluence of this opportunity financially, and then it just happens that this property is available and it's a valuable property from our perspective that makes it all kind of come together as a worthy project. I don't know how much Penny emphasized this, but we think that this will be really a benefit for passive recreation use by town residents. I think this will be an area where, with hiking trails and signs and parking area, local people in that area of Shutesbury are going to enjoy it.
And I will quickly add to what Miriam said. When the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Committee and Bridget met with the CPC, Rita suggested that we add parking as part of this cost, and we have done that, so that we don't have to come back at a later point and ask to do that. So that's part of the basic ask here.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why we are coming to the select board for this is just out of an abundance of caution and respect for the fact that at some point, if we go through and this is approved at town meeting, the town has to agree to become the owner of this property, and the Conservation Commission would be requesting the payment coming out of our Conservation Land Trust for our portion of it.
Okay. Becky, and I have one question. We don't have to vote on anything tonight, do we? No, I didn't think. Okay, perfect. Just wanted.
We're just really kind of looking for a preliminary support contingent upon these other pieces falling into place.
All right, Becky, I saw your hand. Thank you, Miriam.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that the Conservation Trust is under the control of the Conservation Commission, so the Select Board will not be voting on the use of those funds. The money, I believe, was voted at town meeting into the trust, but once it's there, Concom has discretion, Concom and Open Space. The vote will be on the CPC part at town meeting.
Eric?
I just have a very quick question, I guess, from Miriam. You said that the federal funding was sort of a one what is the federal funding that makes it a one-time opportunity?
I'll try to explain this, and then Bridget, if I'm wrong, jump in. So the U.S. Forest Service has a program called the Forest Legacy Fund that helps to secure conservation restrictions on forest tracts so that they cannot be developed. It's the fund that Coles worked with Kestrel around to sell their development rights to some of the conservation land that they own in Shutesbury to the state, if I'm correct. And so this is a federal grant, and it has its own requirements. But my understanding is that there was a project that Kestrel was working on in Belchertown, maybe, yes. And there were some funds left over for the purchase of forest land in that general area. And so when this property became available, this was in keeping with what that grant was looking for and would cover. And the funds are only available until July. So they have to be spent or lost. So we won't have this bite at this apple again for this particular pot of money.
And one other quick question: whose land is it? Whose land are we buying? Not that any of this really matters to the decision, but
I believe her name is Wendy Pearson.
Okay.
Yes, and Kestrel is doing making the purchase first and then transferring the land to the town. So we have a purchase and sale agreement with Wendy Pearson currently. And so we'll hold the land for the town until town meeting and the funds come through, and then we'll make that transfer.
That sounds good. If you're looking for my thought, I think this is a great idea. So I support this going forward in the manner it needs to.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Yep. Okay. Thank you all very much, and keep us up to date.
Okay, great. So we have the other project from the Historical Commission also.
Yep.
I have some photographs of the guidepost, and if you wanted me to share them with you and can give me screen sharing, I could pull that up for
Becky. Can you help?
Would that be helpful?
Sure.
It would be. Visuals are always good.
Okay. Give it a second to think. Sometimes it needs to acclimate. Oh, it's not quite ready for me. It says I am. Screen share. Okay, and now I want PowerPoint. Okay. All right, let me get to where the pictures are. Okay, are you able to see this picture? Okay, I'll scroll through. I took these pictures because some of them, you really, from a distance, you don't see the damage. So here you can see how many crevices there are in the surface of the paint. I'm gonna scroll through some more. This is the top of the structure, which you can sort of see is in pretty sad condition. There's some plywood that's rotting up here. These shingles are peeling up. You get a close up here. You can just see how crappy it looks. Not that it's anybody's fault. It's weathering. Here's more paint peeling. And here there's a number of spots which you don't see from a distance. But here are nail holes where the screws or nails are gone, have corroded or been discontinued. And, you know, it's just a porous openings for rot to set in. Here's another area, another corner, where it looks like in some bygone period, somebody tried to patch it with some sort of patching material that wasn't sanded properly, and now is delaminating from the structure. Here's another picture of the shingles. And then here, zooming out. This little square here is where Ripton used to be, and then somebody took it off. The Ripton Wars. And then here's more pictures. Okay. So here's just kind of a summary I put together for the Historical Commission, sort of summarizing some of the issues with this particular property. Can you see all these bullets? I don't know how visible it is. It's not looking very visible to me. I can only see part of it. But anyway.
Can you scroll down?
Let me see if it's hard because I've got this stupid
no, I think we saw
all the pictures, the zoom there. Can you see that?
That's perfect.
Yeah, we see that. Yep,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
So there's just like multiple issues. It was restored. I think that the restoration work that took place that Bob Groves did was in 2009. And I say that because I found some pictures from 2008 that didn't look it looked worse. So I think that there was some improvement, but it hasn't had a comprehensive, like proper restoration done. And we're feeling, I'm gonna stop sharing, that, you know, this is a very visible and kind of special and very unique historic structure. It's on the state's inventory of historic sites in the state. And it was built in 1838 by a town resident and has been added to over the years. It has the names of communities in the Quabbin that don't exist anymore. So,
and this was a CPC project.
This would be a project that we want to apply to the CPA for. I do not have the budget numbers in front of me because I'm still waiting on some feedback from some expert preservationists that I've been communicating with in order to help develop kind of a scope that we can have in the application. But there are people out there who have enormous amounts of expertise working with fragile structures like this. It would require being removed from its pedestal and taken to a workshop for repairs and restoration work. And they would be able to strengthen the wood and help protect it from future rot, and then repaint it. And maybe put Ripton back on. I think we'll get some votes at town meeting just for that.
Just for that.
We'll have some signs out in front, save Ripton.
So this is similar to the other one. You don't need us to vote on anything.
Well, no, because it belongs to the town, it's on town property. It would be helpful to know that the select board in theory supports this, even though of course it's all going to be subject to the final scope being developed. And my sense, it belongs to the town. My sense would be that, you know, when we collect bids, we would review those with the select board since you own it. And we would come to some consensus about the final details once we get to that stage.
Okay. So make sure it's on. And go ahead, Becky.
You use the term that strengthen the wood. I've never heard that before. How is wood strengthened?
Well, if there's punky, fragile, decayed wood, preservationists use specialized epoxy compounds that it basically creates more sort of structural integrity for the wood, if you can sense what an epoxy does.
It gives it a little bit more strength in the area.
Yeah, it makes it more rigid, firms it up, prevents it, seals it from rot, and then, you know, can be treated with a mildewcide as well, or a bactericide if you need to do that, and then it can be painted over with high quality paints. So, you know, preservationists have methods where they can preserve it for another 50 years. I mean, that would be sort of my hope, is that we aren't having to look at this in 10 more years like we did this last time, that we just do it in a way where we don't have to keep being concerned about doing more and will there be funding available to do it, just kind of do it right the first time.
Thank you.
Do you have any sense of what this will cost? I mean, I think it's a great idea, but it's a little hard to sort of endorse without having any idea what it costs. You know what I mean?
Well,
That's sort of a blank
yeah.
endorsement.
Well, I think we originally had been pitching at $5,000, and I think that's not enough. So I think the final application will be for more than that. And I guess I feel like I'm waiting for some feedback, and I don't want to kind of
sure, no, that's
conjecture. But I think it's.
But that's the range we're talking about, 5 to 20,000 at the
yes,
that's
less than
that kind of those kind of numbers.
Yes,
yeah, I would think so too. But
I would think so too.
Yeah, okay.
So the conservation commission, the historical commission has some funds available in a donation fund at its disposal, but not enough to do this without CPA funding. It's possible there might be other people who want to donate as well once this became publicized. We've reached out to the Friends of the Shutesbury Historical Commission. It's possible that people in the community might want to make donations.
Friends of Ripton.
What?
The Friends of Ripton.
The Friends of Ripton. There could be a designated Ripton budget line for that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Miriam.
Thanks a lot.
Bringing it to our attention.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Shall we move on to the appointment? We have a couple of minutes. The appointment of Barbara Bigelow to the Open Space Committee. Is there someone from Open Space that'd like to give us some information?
I think Gail's here.
Gail.
And Penny.
Penny.
Okay.
I think Gail and I are both excited that Barbara wants to be part of our group. I think she would be a great addition for many reasons, but one thing that stands out in my mind is that Gail and I have been working very hard for the past year plus on the open space and recreation plan. And since the plan has recreation as a key component, Barbara is the chair of the recreation committee. And when she offered her services to join the committee, it seemed like a great fit because so many actually achieving the goals of the open space and recreation plan require lots of groups to be involved, and the recreation committee is a key one of those groups. So I don't know, Gail, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, that's well said. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Eric, for?
No, I think from I don't know Barbara very well, but she'd be fine. She'd be excellent. So for everything they said, I think it makes sense to me.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. If the motion is to, what's the motion going to be?
The motion is to appoint Barbara Bigelow to the Open Space Committee.
So moved.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Thank you very much, Penny and Gail, for bringing her to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're getting close to starting the meeting with the Select Board, School Committee, and Finance Committee about the assessment. We do have a couple of minutes. Do we want to sneak in one set of our minutes before we get to the meeting? I'm not sure all those committees have a quorum yet. So what do you think, Eric? Do you want to?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah.
Right. So
we can probably do both sets of minutes, frankly.
Maybe we can. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from January 4th, 2022?
So moved, although I do believe there's one very small typo at the beginning. Of course, I can't find that one. I have it here on my desk somewhere. I think I think you said, Linda, you said Davis Green as opposed to David Green in the first or second paragraph.
Okay,
that's the only mistake I saw I've ever seen, frankly, in all your minutes. So that's fixed. I'm a happy camper.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I didn't have any edits. So Do I hear a motion to approve the edit to the minutes as amended for January 4th, 2020?
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from January 12th, 2022, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Okay. Any edits or updates we need to make, clarifications at all? No, you didn't have any? Okay. So those in favor of approving the minutes from January 12th?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Okay. We still have a couple of minutes, but I'm not sure anything we have in there will sneak in 3 minutes. So maybe we just give everybody a minute or two to come in. Does the finance committee have a quorum?
Yes, they do.
They do. Okay.
Julie's here from the school committee. I know Dan is not going to be able to make it, and I'll check.
Okay. We'll just give it another minute or two. Becky was going to try to call. I didn't catch the person's name. I apologize.
Steve Sullivan. Sorry.
Thank you. That's fine. Jay, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just, you didn't know. I just wanted to mention that Dan did email me. I don't know if he emailed the select board, just a couple of comments that I think he wants read when we get to that discussion. So I think,
yep, I did.
If I forget.
I didn't see him to the select board, so we'll let you handle those. If
okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it. Yep.
Just waiting a couple minutes for others to pop in. Becky's just trying to get a hold of Steve to see if he's joining us.
Beth is here from the school board too.
Oh, thank you.
I think the regional school committee's meeting tonight. I don't know if that's where Steve might be.
That could be where Steve is, yeah.
So Steve is in the regional school committee meeting, but he's going to come out to chat with us for a few minutes and then log back in.
Okay. We'll keep an eye out for him.
AJ, did you want to put your document online tonight? Should I make you
Sure.
your co-host?
Okay.
There we go.
I guess when you're ready, can I give a little context for this?
Yes, you go ahead. Go ahead, AJ.
Okay, all right.
I'm just waiting to see. Did he say how quickly he was going to transfer over, Becky, or no?
It'll take him a minute. I'll watch for him too.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead, AJ.
So this came out of a discussion.
Do we need to call a finance committee meeting in order? Or are we okay without?
Yeah, probably should. I'm sorry.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, I'll call a finance committee meeting in order. Thanks. We do have, I think, 6 out of 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if Steve comes in, you'll have a quorum of the school committee.
All right, so
Sorry, AJ.
no, that's important. So this came out of a discussion at our most recent finance committee meeting, and it's also in response to a couple of Four Towns meetings that we've participated in now, and at the last regional school committee meeting, which was on January 18th, I believe. Some folks here, I know at least a couple from the finance committee, had a chance to view the recording of at least that portion of the meeting where the regional budget and assessment method were discussed. And I think there's there's some concern that, well, let me just say this. I think the position that was stated by, I think, members of the regional school committee, that they're in a bit of a predicament here, which is, where from their perspective, the towns have come together a couple times and essentially sort of dug our heels in on our preferred assessment method, have not achieved any kind of consensus or compromise. And in the absence of that compromise, I think the regional school committee sort of feels like it's their responsibility to propose not only a budget, but an assessment method that they view as having the kind of most likely to be passed by the towns. And so one particular member, Peter Demling, who I think has been in a lot of ways kind of one of the most sympathetic members to our position, seems to really actually hear our kind of arguments and rationale. He stated the view that kind of, again, in the absence of any clear signs of a consensus, that perhaps the best route for them to take is to just utilize the assessment method from last year, which would be the 65% modified statutory method. And it was also clear that nobody from any of the towns had communicated any kind of updates or restatements of their position or new thoughts since the last Four Towns meeting. And so I think there's a sense that the window is closing for us to play a role in helping to push the assessment method kind of in the direction that we want it to, and that there's a need to communicate something to the regional school committee. I mean, they're meeting tonight. Presumably this topic is coming up again. And so I think not all, but a majority of the FinCom members agreed that it might be a good opportunity right now for us to propose a compromise that, again, moves us in the direction that we want to be in, and might actually, by raising or proposing a compromise, might actually improve the chances that we would achieve a consensus that's more favorable to our town, rather than just reverting back to the method that was used last year. So that's kind of the context. I think there was some support. I proposed making kind of a 2-year sort of informal commitment to this compromise approach, because I think that also addresses another problem with the assessment method process, which is that we kind of have this never-ending cycle of, the region being in kind of a pickle where they're trying to manage a budget and are feeling like the towns can't actually give them any clear direction. And so we sort of fight it out. And I think it's just fair to say that there's a fair amount of frustration on the part, not directed at our town specifically, but just at the process. And so I was thinking that, again, another compromise that we might be able to offer here is by making a kind of 2-year proposal, then that achieves another sort of positive for the region, which is that we don't have to go through this or at least as complicated and unpredictable a process next year. So with that said, I offer to kind of write this letter. And again, this was voted on by the FinCom. So it wasn't unanimous, but a majority of FinCom members agreed to, I guess, recommend to the 3 boards or groups here that we communicate to the region that we support a compromise, or would support a compromise of an 85% modified statutory for the next two years. So you can read the letter, I guess, presumably many of you had. So I think that's the context. Am I missing anything important?
That's it.
I just want to mention the school committee has a quorum. They might want to call themselves to order. And in the absence of Dan, one of the other members would have to do that. Maybe Lauren? Sorry to interrupt, AJ.
I'd like to call the school committee to order at 6:22.
Excellent.
Bob, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm one of the members that voted against this idea, and I do appreciate the constant, so typical effort for AJ to compromise and to find somebody on the other side to be empathetic with their position. But I just want to remind everybody here that we had at least one, but I think 2 meetings on this subject this year. And during those meetings, we formed a consensus, I think, as a town, what our policy was and is going forward in this year. And that is that we supported the statutory method as a long-term goal. That was our position going in with the 5-year rolling average. And we consider that to be the most equitable system for assessment. And as far as digging our heels in, I think that's really the way that maybe some people would characterize our behavior. But we really have been extremely flexible in that we have been patient in this process over the last 5 to 7 years, letting our goal be reached incrementally, very slowly, at the expense of quite a bit of money. But I think that was in the effort to be considerate of the interest and the budgeting process of the other towns in the district. So I think that has to be remembered. I support us going in with the same position that we described and we supported earlier in the year and we had last year, and then with the willingness to listen and to be open-minded to a consensus. But we must remember that the way the law works on this subject is very clear. It's not a matter of consensus that is legally dispositive. What's a matter is of absolute, universal acceptance of a method. So in other words, any town that does not accept the method has the right to reject the method. That's the way the law is written, for a reason, to protect little towns from being bullied by the other towns. So I don't really want to be fractious or contentious in this meeting. I wouldn't recommend that, but I would say we should go in with a firm opinion that we've discussed it a lot, and we all agreed that we felt that the statutory method was the best method for the district, the most equitable and fair method. And I think we should stick to that, and we should be willing to go in with a mind to say maybe compromise to 85%. Hopefully that wouldn't be a terrible outcome. I would support that. But going in with the compromise in hand, I don't think it's a very wise way to enter it, because I think that we lose our moral position, which I think is a good one, and that we're on the side of fairness, equity, and progressivity. And Peter Demelo did say that, but then he wobbled on it when it came down to the last meeting, I understand. So I think we have to appeal to his good sense and to his fairness and go in with the same position that we described earlier. That's my view.
Bob, does anybody else have any comments that they'd like to make? Jim Hemingway?
Unmute here. I was one of the ones who also joined Bob and voted against this proposal. Being consistent in our negotiating position from year to year, I think is very important. The other thing I might add is if we sort of vacillate and go in and accept and sort of change our minds and sort of concede the way this this proposal seems to be doing. The town has to agree to this, and the town voters have been very much on the side of going in with the expectation that we will eventually get to 100%, and that's what that's the way the town sees it. And if we compromise here and town voters don't like it and turn it down, then we'll be in a real pickle. And I would strongly suggest that we follow Bob's advice on this one. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Susie, I see your hand.
I'd just like to reflect that this letter and this effort, it was part of the FinCom's vote 5-2 to make negotiating progress, not letting go of the final goal, but making some progress in a window that seems to be closing. And we wanted to get this letter to the regional school committee before the 4-town meeting convened. So I would like to hear, so this letter reflects what our meeting ended up coming to at a 5-2 vote. I'd like to hear what the school committee and the select board have to say.
Okay. Let me ask Julie to have Julie speak too, and then we can answer that question.
Can I actually just ask that we stop sharing the screen with the letter so that we can see everybody on the screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
AJ has
Okay,
to
yeah,
do
I'll
it.
stop the share. Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Julie. It is easier to see everybody. Okay. Does the school committee have thoughts on the letter that has been presented that they'd like to share? Okay. Eric, do you have any comments on the letter?
I mean, I have no problem with going in and sticking to our guns, so to speak. I guess that's the wrong expression these days. On the 100%, but I mean, I do hear from what Bob said, a willingness to negotiate if we have to. And I think that's, I think it's not a great system to go in and you've already done negotiation. That's what this letter does. I mean, I appreciate the goal of it. In fact, I think it's probably likely that it might be what we end up doing, but to start from that seems to me a bad idea. It does change it sort of changes our opinion, our view over the last few years, basically.
I have a similar comment. I'm not sure we want to show our cards 100% going into the meeting. I'm not sure that's a good negotiating method. So I'd like to see us stick to the 100%, and then if there's a compromise that needed, the compromise in the letter is appealing. I see a Jay, George, and Lauren. I don't know what order those popped up in, but I'll go left to right. A Jay.
Okay. So I just a couple things. I just remembered I have to read Dan's Dan Hayes's comments. But I'll also just mention that, I think I hear what everybody's saying, and I think, I tried to spend a fair amount of time in this letter explaining why we support this position. And I think maybe, I don't know if this came through, but my intention was not to say that we have a changed position or a changed preference or a changed perspective or view on what is the fairest method. I spent a couple paragraphs trying to articulate why we support the modified statutory. That I just am concerned that again, in the absence of making any progress, I think the regional school committee is going to be inclined to just repeat utilize the same method as last year, which I think is bad for many reasons, would be bad for us. And so I think this is really just a question of what kind of is the time to negotiate now, or is there going to be sufficient time to negotiate? Like, I got the sense that the committee was sort of already kind of moving in that position. And so anyway, that's what triggered this whole process. So let me read Dan's comments here. As a long-serving school committee member and as chair of the Collaborative for Educational Services, I have consistently advocated for equity. I believe at the root of equity is the socioeconomic aspect. In July 2015, I was appointed to the Shutesbury Regional Assessment Group. In these discussions, for me, equity was a driving factor. Here we are 7 years later and still discussing the assessment method. For me, it is frustrating that the basic notion of equity is still being discarded or not presented at the table when we discuss assessment methodology. In determining an assessment methodology, the state has investigated, explored, and devised a system that provides equity in how those costs are shared. As I have stated in the past, I support the 100% statutory method with a 5-year rolling average. I support this because it is a fair, equitable, and predictable method. I do not support the idea of going into the meeting with a compromise proposal. Yes, compromise may be necessary to achieve consensus, but this does not change the underlying issue of equity, which I believe is our position.
Did you want to read what, did you read what Dan had written there? I didn't catch
that.
That
was Dan. Sorry,
okay. I'm
that
sorry.
whole paragraph was Dan's. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I did catch Dan.
Sorry.
It's okay. George.
So I really liked the letter. I thought the body of the letter was great because I thought it was consistent with what we've been saying all along. Statutory is the method. This is why. And we're not changing our position from that perspective. The concern I had from the video from that regional school committee making the recommendation to stick with 65 is we've been increasing every year by 10%. That's been a steady stream. And for them to stop all of a sudden with not having a really good reason, and as Dan said, in light and everybody else, in light of the equity issue. So I think we're being pretty consistent in saying that we want the statutory method. That's where we're heading. I thought, again, the body was great. As far as going 85, that just keeps the needle moving, just like we've always asked for. So I don't really see a problem with that. If we want to negotiate different, I'm in agreement with that. We can take that last part out. I thought AJ was a great letter, and it really explains to them where we are, what we really expect. So that body of that letter alone tells them that they should continue to move the needle and that we wouldn't be satisfied with 65%. So I guess where we're at is we just want to edit that last sentence where we mention 85%.
Yeah, that's the part that I that would be the only part that I would take out of it, because the letter, I do agree, was great. George.
I'm done.
Okay. I see Becky's hand. 2 hands.
Yeah, 3. Before we amend, I just would like to hear from Steve and have a sense of where he thinks the regional school committee is, because I think that 85% was a real attempt to make sure we get more than 65% this year. And negotiating in a Zoom meeting with 80 people has not been as productive. So what's been happening is the decisions are made after the meetings. And to prepare and set a stage by reaching out with a compromise ahead of the meeting might be something that would be helpful. But I'd like to hear from Steve and what his sense is of what the committee is doing and will do.
Steve, I think you're...
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the budget, I think it's 7 or 7:15 tonight. Okay. And I don't believe you're going to see anything over the 65. Between Amherst and Leverett, they are going to stay hard where they are. And I don't see it going over that. And if Shutesbury sticks to that 100%, then it'll end up going to the full statutory with the 1/12 of the budget every month for the school year.
I see Jim. Becky, I think you're finished, right? Jim?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Becky did a good job of summarizing at least what drove us as a committee to vote in a majority the way we did, is thinking through the final steps here. But the one key point I want to make here is, and the reason for driving this letter in the first place is is the time is tight. It looks like this final meeting happens a week from Thursday, that Thursday evening. And based on what we're hearing right now, there's a decision at the school board that is at 65%. So this is our effort to get in front of that. This letter is our effort to get in front of that. So it's important to get a letter out there with our position and get it out there quickly to where AJ has addressed it. And then we can sort out here what that final verbiage is toward the end. But again, I think it's critical we get this message out now for the reasons stated. Thanks.
Susie and Bob.
So this letter does not say we are changing our goal. It is an attempt to move the process. If we don't try to move the process, then they will stand still at 65. And like Steve said, it would then revert to, if the town rejects it, a 1/12 budget. And so I feel like people's characterization that somehow this letter is changing the town's goal or not reflecting the town's goal is not true. This letter reflects a negotiating strategy. And it gives, really the only thing it gives to the regional school is that they don't have to be pestered for next year. And that's worth something. It does not say we're going to stop there. So I support this letter, and I support being able to make some forward progress.
Thank you, Susie. Bob?
Yes, I just want to say I understand the rationale that Susie and AJ have so eloquently proposed. I don't agree with it as a negotiating method. I actually think we're better off going in like we did earlier this year and like we did last year. And I want to remind everyone here that when we did that last year, when we had this very same discussion, almost word for word, there were people then, maybe the same people, who said exactly these things, that we were going to undermine the budget, that the other towns weren't going to move, that we were going to end up with a month-by-month method. It's going to be a big mess, and it's going to be a real chaotic pandemonium. And all that did not happen last year. What happened last year was, after we had our 4-town meeting, Amherst made some major concessions. They came up with some money. They did not, the budget was pretty much intact. And we got our 65%. It moved considerably in our direction. I think we were successful. I think we were all very happy about that. And so what I think we should do this year is the same. We should go in with all due respect to the other towns and with the confidence and the conviction of our own views, which are well understood. And I don't think any of us disagree with that. But I think that's a better negotiating method. I think it's better tactics. And I think it gives us a better chance for success.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Anybody else have any comments? I have, Becky, go ahead.
Just a little one. I sent out the Montague Reporter article. I don't know if anybody saw it, but it's the Montague Reporter. They cover Leverett. They do not cover Shutesbury. And the headline was "Frustrations in Leverett over Amherst District Budget." And then it's a very anti-Shutesbury article that we have dug their heels in year after year, and Leverett's being quite frustrated about it, and saying that we're going to break the school budget and terrible things will happen to the education of our kids, and it's all Shutesbury's fault, and they want to begin a media campaign to try to address it. This is typical of what they said. Like Bob said, Julie says this most every time she speaks about Shutesbury and the regional assessment. But the problem is, I think this year Amherst has dug in harder with less ability to respond. I think the school committee, like Steve has already said, if anybody's dug in their heels, it potentially might be the school committee. And if we were, this might be our only chance to move them off the dime. But the most important thing is, however this letter ends up, I'd like to send it in to the Montague Reporter and get some feedback for our community, because Leverett people read this magazine and get no information about Shutesbury. So if nothing else, I think the letter would be very useful in explaining the depth and the meaning of why we pursue this goal about equity. So I hope people can vote to support that tonight, if nothing else.
Jim, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just have a general question, and that is, so this next and I believe final meeting for Fort Town is a week from Thursday. What is our sense for that format? I guess we have seen an agenda. I haven't seen a presentation on what they plan to show. Do we have any more information other than the agenda at this point?
They updated the budget for tonight's meeting, so there's a new PowerPoint with new numbers. I know that because I just saw it right before we started.
Yeah. So I guess my question is how they plan to frame in the discussion about assessment methodology in that Thursday meeting. Or are they just going to have a slide that shows, okay, the school committee has decided to go to 65% or stay at 65%?
I can forward that to Becky after my regional meeting tonight, because it's in my packet.
What's in your packet, Steve?
The 2 PowerPoints that will probably be shown at next Thursday's meeting, because we're going over the budget tonight.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful for all of us to see those.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Jim. Eric, you put your hand up, and I see Susie again.
Sure. The biggest thing it seems to me is what this boils down to me is what's the most realistic way that we're going to move the needle, so to speak. I mean, if the most realistic way, it seems to me there's really a debate about what's the most realistic way to do it. One is to go in there and, 100% and play tough. And the other one say, okay, let's go to 85%. And, there's 2 different sort of philosophies about how to achieve the goal. It seems to me, I may be putting words in people's mouths. My sense is people would compromise at 85% if in fact that's what it came down to. I think Becky has also made a very good point that I think she made the point that it's just going to be very hard to negotiate with 80 people on a Zoom call or 60 people, whatever it is. That's just kind of a bad look. And to go in there to get ahead of it, as people are suggesting, maybe does make more sense. That's all. So I think the real issue is what's the most realistic way we're going to get to 85 or more %. And my guess is AJ's letter or something like it probably is in that category.
Good point, Eric. Susie.
I feel the question is, what would be the harm in sending this letter that says we want 100% and we will ask for them to consider 85% for 2 years. What's the harm in doing that when we still intend to continue to move after this 2-year period? And the harm of not work on negotiating at this level, the harm in letting people like Peter Demling say, we're just going to stay where we are. The harm with that of not moving seems much greater to me. So I would prefer having a letter that shows movement rather than being stuck at 65, which then will cascade into other harmful steps.
Jay, and then, thank you, Susie. Jay, and then George, and then Jim.
So
anyway.
I just wanted to add one thing to the conversation here, which is that I think we've sort of been saying this, but maybe not as directly, which is that we have sort of also have a different audience here, which is the regional school committee itself. They are going to, I think, sort of assert their role, their responsibility, and come up with some, they're going to propose a method, and they're going to say, look, we gave the towns an opportunity to come to an agreement. They can't do it. So we have to, in the absence of that, we have to. So I think in a way, our audience here is, our most important audience is the regional school committee itself, maybe even more so than representatives from the other towns. And I think sort of failing to like signal to them that we are willing to compromise and give them something, I think doesn't help us in the long run. That's my view. And I think this actually gives them quite a bit. First of all, it gives them something they can sell as a compromise. And it also gives them the benefit of a 2-year sort of commitment. And I think that would be quite, actually, in some ways, that might be the part of this that's most appealing to them, is feeling like, well, we're going to get a reprieve from this frustrating process for the next year. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Ajay. George.
Just another way of looking at it. In that last paragraph, to this end, we have we agreed to endorse the following compromise, 85. I'm thinking we should just tell them what we expect, and what we expect is that we don't stop at 65 and we move to at least 75 next year, and we expect to continue to move to 100%, and therefore we're disappointed in hearing that the regional school committee is offering a 65%. That's all. I just want to say, I'm just thinking we should just be honest with them and say what we've been saying all along. We understand that going to 100% hurts the budget. We've always said that, and we're willing to move forward, and we want to continue to move forward, and we're disappointed in the 65%. That's all.
Jim Hemingway.
Well, as I said before, 65% is their negotiating position. That's where they're starting. We're starting at 100%. Something will happen to come up with a solution somewhere in between the two. And I just think this is the way we've worked it every year, and this will be the way we should go at it this year as well.
Thank you, Jim. Becky, Bob, and George. Becky.
Thank you. I just want to hear from Steve again. Steve, what do you think your committee, what do you think we can sell to your committee? Do you think they would have any interest in a compromise at 85?
I don't think so, but I was just trying to open up that PowerPoint and see what it says in the first page, but I didn't see it yet.
Okay. So your feeling is you don't think they'll budge even with a letter?
No, I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Bob.
Yeah, I just want to say, look, we are the finance committee and the select board and the school committee of the town of Shutesbury. We're the officials that will make a recommendation to town meeting. The regional school committee will make their recommendation. Like they made a recommendation on a budget and other matters, made a recommendation on capital spending. We have to review and analyze and evaluate that recommendation and decide what is in the best interest for the well-being of our town. That is our job. That is our responsibility. If we disagree with the school committee, we have to express that view, and we have to represent town meeting and our taxpayers and our citizens. That's our job. We can't avoid it. We can't just slough it off to the school committee. They're doing their job, and they have their own role. We have our role. Their opinion or their recommendation is not necessarily going to carry the day. What ultimately carries the day is at least this is what's happened in the past, in my observation, is when the town officials, knock heads, get together, collaborate, and come up with a solution that is acceptable to everyone. And that's what's happened in the context of the law, the statutory law, but also in the context of the ongoing discussion and the movement we've had. Yeah, we expect to move further down the road towards full statutory 5-year rolling. And so I would be extremely vehement about that. As a town, we shouldn't accept any ruling or recommendation that doesn't achieve that to some degree. Yeah, we go in asking for 100%. We have our reasons, and then be willing to listen and be willing to accept something less than that. That's my view. But the school committee doesn't have the authority to impose that on us. That's where I disagree with what Becky has been saying.
Hi.
Okay. Melody, and then George, you had your hand up. Did you want to say anything? You're good? Okay. So Melody and Ajay.
Okay, I don't know this. This may be a rather naive question, but it seems to me that it might be, at least from where I come from, it might make sense to appeal to the moral high ground. I mean, I feel like if the letter, I voted for this letter, and I feel like if the letter talked a little bit more about the economic justice and the equity issues and how the statutory method does that for people, I think most people in this area, at least I've discovered as a resident of the Pioneer Valley, that most people are pretty progressive. And I think most people really, a lot of people stand for justice. And so to me, instead of making this about town against town, why doesn't the letter just talk more about how the statutory method really does demonstrate equity and you know, so I guess my point, and I guess I'm articulating this rather badly, but I think that we should really appeal to the moral high ground, because I think that when you stand on that kind of truth, I mean, it's kind of hard to say no to that. Just my opinion.
Ajay?
So I just wanted to respond to Bob's point about sort of like, you know, we have our role and the regional school committee has its role. I mean, I think it's, well, I think we have to kind of confront here is that we are the part of the region, right? The regional school committee represents us and our students, as you know, as that we send to the region. And yes, it's true that ultimately the ability, you know, the ultimate decision-making authority resides with the towns at town meeting. It's in our interests to move the school committee in the direction of proposing a budget that both accomplishes our goals and is likely to be passed. So this idea that we can just kind of let them do their thing and we're going to do our thing, and if we're not ultimately not satisfied with what they're doing, then we're just going to, you know, reject it. That's a very bad outcome for us, for the region, for our kids, for the schools. And so it would be negligent for us to proceed in towards a path that just sort of ignores the fact that they're ultimately going to play the critical role, which is putting a budget which has an assessment method in front of our town's voters and every other town. That they're going to do that. And our interest is in making sure that whatever they propose achieves some of our goals and is likely to be passed. And so I don't think it's as simple as saying, let them do their job, we'll do our job. If we're not happy, we'll just vote it down. That's not an outcome that we should be sort of wanting to move towards. That's bad for everybody. That's bad for the towns, and that's bad for the region.
Lauren, and thank you, Ajay. Lauren and Jim Walton.
Just in support of what AJ was saying, I think we have to keep in mind the consequences if the budget were to be rejected. I mean, I don't want, and the school has been making cuts for several years now, and it's continuing to impact the quality of education, and we don't want that. So, you know, we have to find a way to work within the region, and we have to make these things balance. We have to find a way to make what we think is fair and right match with, you know, also maintaining the school. This is what we've been fighting for years now, and it's really frustrating, but I don't want the school to experience more cuts ultimately. I mean, you know, that's really important to me, and we can't just put that aside in that, like, we will push for what we want, and, you know, whatever the consequences are. I just want to remember what the consequences are, I guess I'm saying.
Thanks, Lauren. Jim?
Yeah, I just say the reason I voted for this is looking at the audience and what is our mission here. The audience here is the school committee. And it's not a negotiation discussion with the 4 towns. So I think under that context, that's the reason I moved in the direction that I went. This is a letter to the school committee based on the information and the understanding that we had at our last finance committee meeting last week. So I think that's something we just need to think about too, is who is the audience here, and who are we trying to communicate to?
Mm-hmm. Good point, Jim. Eric.
I guess I would just point out, reiterate that that the statutory method includes a big chunk of it is the regional agreement method that equals, as I understand it anyway. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the law, but I think it does. So there's a huge chunk of this that the statutory method represents, as does the 85% method in particular, represent a real meshing of the two ways of deciding what budget should be. So there's an equity piece, and there's also a piece that's a per student piece that's very strongly represented. I just think that should be mentioned, because it's for Leverett and the people that want that position. That's part of the compromises. Look, we have the equity piece, we have the single pay, the people all pay the same piece. We're trying to compromise something there. That's all.
Thank you, Eric. Lauren.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think we need to keep repeating ourselves. We're being represented as digging our heels in and pushing for our own interests. And that doesn't include as part of the discussion that it's an equity issue, nor does it include as part of the discussion that we've been compromising for several years now. So I think we have to, partially because the people involved keep changing, I think we have to keep saying these things. I think we have to keep saying Shutesbury has compromised repeatedly, and that we still believe it's an equity issue. And it was brought up at one of our last meetings. It would still be an equity issue even if it didn't benefit Shutesbury. Yeah. It's not just about Shutesbury, it's about fairness and equity, and that's what we're trying to put forward.
Thank you, Lauren. I see Susie, and then maybe we talk about voting. Okay, Susie.
Yeah, I wanted to add a sentence to this that would say, it would be after the sentence in the second paragraph that mentions the equitable method of allocating assessments. I wanted to add, we appreciate the progress the assessment agreement has made over the last 6 years to implement equity at its core. And then the other edit I wanted to offer is, instead of saying despite, which somehow caused me some wrinkle, maybe we would say notwithstanding our commitment to the modified statutory method, we recognize that compromise, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like those two things head in the direction, and trying to edit as this large of a group, I hope we can get to a vote so that this letter can get sent soon.
Great. So I guess I'll ask if people feel that they're with the edits that Susie if anyone has comments about the edits that Susie just made. Does anyone want to comment on those, or are we good with those two additions?
I can share the letter again if you want to see it now that we're getting ready
Put
to.
up for just a visual, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah. Let's see.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Perfect, and it's in red.
Yeah, Susie's suggestion, which I think are good. Yeah.
Okay. So do people feel comfortable in voting as it's been amended here on this? I guess I'm speaking really to Eric and myself. And do others feel that way within their own committees? Okay. Jim Walton.
Yeah, I think it looks good, but I know Melody earlier suggested some more verbiage, and I looked through this, and I think, Melody, at least in my opinion, this paragraph here, the main paragraph, the big paragraph, does get into some detail on the point that you want to make sure we make. I just think if we put too much verbiage into this letter, it might lose some of its power or its message. So I'm just commenting to Melody's thoughts earlier.
Melody, you can respond if you'd like to.
I'm fine with that. I just was kind of what Lauren was saying. People have been kind of transitory in this process, and I didn't know if everybody really understood the root of the equity issue, and so just wanted to be sure that was really clear. But if everybody feels that it's clear, that's great. I'm okay with it.
All right. Jim Hemingway, and I see Bob.
I think the letter is fine, but I would cut the second to last paragraph. If you do that, then I think that would be the way to go.
Okay, Bob.
I just second that. I think that again, that would address my issues with the letter. I think it's an excellent letter, and it does express our position on the issue of equity and fairness quite well. I just have a disagreement with my colleagues about this as a negotiating method. So I would support the removal of that last paragraph as well, the yellow paragraph.
Okay. Susie, do you have a comment? No.
If we take that out, there's no negotiation here.
Okay.
That's right.
No, that's what I was going to say. We still need to make a statement about what we're expecting or what we want.
Well, we are making that statement initially, 100%.
Right.
Go ahead, George. You were starting.
Well, the way that reads is, as a town, we remain steadfast in our position of 100% mandatory method. But we're not stating specifically that that's what we would like for the FY23 budget.
So would it be stronger if we said that 100% for the?
That's the purpose of the yellow paragraph, is to tell them what we would like them to do this year. That's the way I see it.
Well, they will arrive at a compromise of some sort, and they will negotiate that. We'll hear what it is.
Yes, Jim. But my concern is that we're not telling them that we're disappointed with their decision that they've made already about the 65, and we expect and we want them to continue to move. That's my concern.
Yeah, they've already tried.
But they're not necessarily. That's not. They knew what we wanted before, anyways. This first paragraph is not new to Peter Demling. But they chose to stick with 65. I want to specifically state that we're not happy with 65.
Do you have suggested verbiage there, George, off the cuff?
Well, what I said earlier was that Shutesbury would like to continue moving towards 100%, and something to the effect that, so we were expecting that for FY23, we would have something higher than 65. Something to that effect is really what I wanted to say.
I'll let Jay finish typing that before I call on.
We were expecting the regional school committee.
We were hopeful, we were expecting,
Yeah, to continue
to move towards 100%.
Yeah, to make progress towards 100% by moving to 85%.
Well, we got to clean this up, but let me just leave it there for now, just as we're debating the different.
And maybe if we can't achieve 100% next year, then we were still expecting an increase.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say something? I would be willing to accept if we made the yellow paragraph said that Shutesbury would support a regional school budget of blah, blah, blah of at least 85% modified statutory method for FY23. I would be willing to accept that as an opening gambit, not 24, but at least put in that proviso, at least 85%. So that's our opening. You know, that's more reasonable to me. We made the equity statement above. And again, you could add a comment about we still intend to promote and support 100% statutory with the 5-year rolling average, but at least 85% would be acceptable to me in this document for 1 year, FY23. I don't know if anybody else thinks that's a good idea. That's a bit of a compromise. AJ, Susie?
I guess it just doesn't offer the, again, I'm trying to give the school committee some carrots here, and you know, one of them would be the advantage of, you know, again, avoiding this process for another year.
The additional year.
It's easy to do, just 100% right now.
I wish we could just wave a wand and make it happen, but it doesn't look like it's going to.
How are people feeling about this new thing added?
I'm okay with it.
Susie?
I think if that part that says Shutesbury would like to continue moving, blah, 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 was put up in the paragraph, in the larger paragraph, maybe after the addition of the red area that I said, then it sticks to that. It puts that idea, you know, a little bit more firmly. Or I don't know, maybe it's the same as that first sentence, just it's a little bit more definitive.
We could also, on the first sentence where it says, as a town remains steadfast in our position that the 100% modified method is, end the sentence with, therefore, we would like to continue to move towards that method.
Yeah.
It's very simple. And then, you know, we can just drop that part below the yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, right. I think that works.
And then get rid of this?
Yes.
I would maybe change a word in that new sentence.
Yeah.
And that's, you said we would like to continue. What about we would support continuing? Because like sort of seems a little more wishy, you know, support continuing.
It's not that we support, it's that we want to. We expect to, yeah, we'd like to.
Maybe something a little stronger there might work out a little bit better.
How about we support continuing to move toward that method?
Yeah. I like that. We support continuing.
Well, you know, again, I don't think we're supporting, we're pushing. Yeah, I'm fine with it.
You support here, then push after.
No, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
All right. Bob, Susie, and Eric, and I think then we'll have to kind of close this down so we can get other things done that we have on our agenda.
Well, I just want to know what the folks here think about my idea about editing the yellow paragraph to say what I said. Is that something that other people could support or vote for?
The key being just the 1 year and
1 year
at least 85%.
A minimum of 85%. That's, or at least 85%.
Thoughts on Bob's question? Susie, Eric, or Julie?
The FinCom voted 5-2 to use this as a negotiating step, that we would support a regional budget for both FY23 and 24 that utilizes 85% modified statutory. That doesn't change my opinion.
Eric and Julie?
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think the other, if we're going to edit by committee here, which is always difficult, I think I would even bold in the second paragraph that the modified statutory method achieves a reasonable balance. That's what I think people miss that point. They miss the point the statutory method does include a big chunk of the regional agreement as part of the statutory method. That's how it works. And I think people miss that point. So I think that's really something to be emphasized. That's all. That's all.
Thank you, Eric. Jim.
I agree with what Bob has said, but in that yellowed out sentence, just remove for both FY23 and 24, we don't want to extend this over 2 years. We would, our hope is that we could achieve at least 85% modified statutory method this year. I would leave it at that. I would not try to negotiate over the second year. We're going to be arguing about this next year as well. So why include it at this point?
Thoughts? Anybody? Thoughts? Julie?
Can I just ask, I see that we're offering in this sentence as it is for both FY23 and FY24, are we empowered to actually offer that for over 2 years? Like, is that even a thing that we're able to do? Wouldn't it be a negotiation again next year? Like, why would we as one town be able to sort of frame the debate is my question.
That's a very good point.
It sort of puts us on the record as saying when this process takes place next year, we made a commitment that that presumably we would honor. Yes, it's ultimately it's ultimately the regional school committee's process. So we're just trying to give them input. So I think in terms of are we empowered, I think it's just a statement. It's not binding or anything. Yeah.
I do think that that's the carrot of what we would be bringing to the table. So I do think it becomes a little feckless to take it out, but I just don't know. Yeah.
Good question to ask, though. Good question to ask. Jim and George and Ajay, I have just one edit. Can you put a space between thank you and method on that last paragraph like you have the others? Yeah, you have a blank line between each one of the paragraphs.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jim and George.
Yeah, I think it was like Julie said, it is a carrot, but on the other side, we do need to renegotiate this agreement every year. So if for whatever reason the circumstances changed and it didn't make sense for Shutesbury to go another year at 85%, we could open up that discussion. So I sort of like the combination of throwing it out there as a carrot, but we still have some flexibility.
So does everyone else.
It might land. My opinion on leaving in the second year could land it at 85 this year, knowing that they could have a town that would at least be steadfast in what was left at the beginning of the negotiation next year. It could help us get it this year, potentially. George and Becky.
I was just going to remind everybody, we had done that before. A number of years ago, Amherst actually suggested it, that we set the next 2 years and the rates for those 2 years. And my recollection, it's quite a while ago, is we stuck to that. But yeah, it's non-binding, but it was appealing to other towns. And when the next year came along, everybody was relieved to just go along with what we agreed to the year before. That doesn't mean that'll happen next year, but it was successful in the past.
Becky.
Yeah, I was gonna say almost the same thing. It's non-binding. No town votes are taken at all throughout this process. We go to these meetings, we let our feelings known to the regional school, and they take the votes. And then we go back to our town meetings and vote on what they voted on. But we have, you know, it's not binding, and George already said that. Good point, Julie.
George and Eric, and then we revisit voting on it as written. Go.
Just one other thing I want to say. It seems to me that if we ended up at 85%, we're basically one notch away from 100. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, nobody's going to talk about 95%. It's going to be 85 to 100. So if we can get them to go, you know, if we can get agreement to 85%, I think we're just about home.
Eric.
A very quick point. I believe in that yellow paragraph, and I don't know if I'm correct enough, but I think regional school might want to be capitalized. I don't know that. Somebody is a better grammatician than I can comment on that.
Seems right.
It's respectful.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Julie.
Sorry, I just wanted to check. So are we taking out the bracketed at least 85% and just leaving it at a strong 85%? As it was initially?
I mean, I don't know what others think. My feeling is that it's sort of like, it's not like we're going to say at least 85% and they're going to say, oh yeah, let's give them 95, or 90%. I mean, that's, if we end up there, it's going to be a good outcome, and there's, we're not going to get any higher. So I don't know if that accomplishes anything.
Yeah, it might land a little softer. The at least might land a little softer. So, okay, are we again ready to think about voting among our committees on this letter so that we can get it to them?
Melissa, this is just a technical point for AJ. On the yellow paragraph where you say regional school budget for FY20, shouldn't it be regional school assessment?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Words are important.
Yep.
Are important. Okay.
I'm going to get rid of that. Okay.
Raise your hand.
All right. Susie and Bob, we really should move on. Susie and Bob.
No. I just want to know if we're voting on it without taking out the at least.
And keeping in the 2 years for now, or are we trying that first? Or?
That's where the FinCom started.
Bob.
Very briefly, I'll just say that if we do vote this in and we send it along, I'm going to make a prediction here. We're not going to get 85%. They're going to use it as a negotiating position. They're going to negotiate down from there. So that's my prediction, and I hope I'm not right. But I think that's because this is a bad negotiating tactic. But there it is.
Maybe the at least makes sense in that case. I
can put it back in. If folks want.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking.
No.
It doesn't. It maybe they won't go 75%, right? I mean, they're going to do what they're going to vote on and such, but maybe the at least helps boost it a little bit because they're getting 2 years before they see the at least. I'm just tossing that out there. I could be convinced otherwise, I think, but
let's vote.
Okay. All right. Shall we take a vote among our committees? I do see Bob's hand and Mike's hand, but I want to. We got to move on.
I'm done. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay, Bob.
Vote.
Okay. All right. Does who would like to vote first? The select board could vote first. Whoever would like to vote, I'll leave it up. If no one jumps, I'll have the select board vote first. Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the letter as amended to send to the regional school committee, Mike Morris and Doug Slaughter, about our position with the assessment method?
So moved.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions, Eric?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. FinCom?
Okay, Finance Committee, are we prepared to vote on this letter as modified here in
So
front?
moved. So moved.
Okay, and can we vote?
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, nay.
Hemingway, nay.
Wait. Oh. Wait. Hold on.
What do
It
you
was
need?
in a second.
Yeah, could you,
You just want to
Oh,
mute
you
Linda.
muted yourself.
Linda, you're muted.
We're waiting on you.
Thank you. Sorry. If you could please start the FinCom vote again, just going a little too fast for me. Thank you.
We're quick in the FinCom.
Yep, I have to type though.
No. George, we want to start with George?
Yeah.
So just a question. I heard Susie say it's so moved. I didn't hear a second. Well, should we have seconded?
Second.
Okay.
Who seconded?
Arvanitis.
Groves.
Groves.
Okay, sorry, I
Thank
missed
you.
that. Okay. Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, nay.
Hemingway, nay.
Wait, start again, please.
It's
Sorry.
slower, guys.
Yeah. Okay, George, I.
Chartier, aye.
Thank you.
Groves.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm good now.
Groves, nay.
Hemingway, nay.
Cashew, yes.
Mosier, yes.
Walton, yay.
Yay.
We're not consistent.
And the school committee, do they have a quorum at the moment? I don't
I think so. They have
do, yeah.
Julie, Bethany, and
Okay.
Lauren.
Okay. Would you like to cast your votes?
I move to approve the letter as written.
I second.
Thomas
Could
Bacon,
you just
aye.
say who that was, please?
Martel.
Thank you.
Thomas Paquin, aye.
Martel, aye.
Rose, aye.
Sullivan, nay.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Where it goes.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for that hard work and working together. Bob, you have a question?
Thank you.
Oh, you're saying goodbye. Do you have a question?
Becky,
Bob, for you?
am I sending this to you, Becky? And then
Yeah.
I guess somehow it gets on letterhead and all that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, AJ, thanks for taking the lead on all this.
Don't forget to adjourn.
Yeah.
Yes.
AJ, don't forget to date it.
Yep.
I'll send your love to the regional school committee now.
Good luck.
You all have a good evening.
But I am going to
FinCom
say,
moves to it. The FinCom, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, okay.
Arvanitis, aye.
I think
Jim,
Chartier left.
Okay.
So did Groves.
Susie, go ahead.
Hemingway's turn.
Aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Does the school committee want to adjourn?
Can we hear Steve's comment first? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
so I am not saying a word about this. I'm letting the letter go first. So have a good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thanks, Steve.
You all have a good one.
All right, take it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. That was a lot.
It was. We're getting good practice on those things lately. Okay, it's just us left. Okay, so let's move on to the minutes done. USDA letter. We are running behind. USD letter on dispatching of geese.
All right, let me find it so I can put it up. Okay, at the Regional School Committee. Oh, wait a second. Okay. Now I can't find my Zoom. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Eric and Melissa, did you have a chance to look at this in the packet?
I did read through it. Yep. Eric, were you able to?
Yeah. Yes.
There is a typo.
Okay.
Well, first, acting police chief should be in the first line. Acting police chief should be capitalized, and Kristen has an E instead of an I.
Oh, that was Rita.
And town administrator should be capitalized too.
And that was.
That's true. Title should be capitalized. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you for catching that.
It's so easy to edit when everybody's watching you, Becky.
I know. Well, I don't know. Yeah. And Kristen's with an I. Yeah. No, Rita helpfully did some edits for me that improved the letter quite a bit. We got out, she got rid of the crude killing comments and made it much improved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else?
I think that is.
No, it's good.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Becky, can you scroll down to the second page?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Second paragraph though. Acting Chief Burgess.
Again.
Yeah. Sorry for jumping in.
No, that's okay.
Oh, that's great.
It's a team effort, Linda.
Oh, I don't know why the cursor is extra big. For some reason, when I have little type, it takes off the wrong lines. Okay, but at least I could see where it is. Acting Chief, FOIA request.
Down on the first line of the second page, their president, in that case, no, that's a lowercase p. The association of their president. It would only be capital if it was after her name. Right, Linda?
I think it's I think that's okay. That's
okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's not, it's a different type of a title.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
Oh, the select board's main interest is in having, yeah, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Did we mention up above what LWA means?
Oh, that's
the selectmen's main notice of their president, Donna West, denied any involvement by LWA.
Yeah, it says Lake Wyola Association in the beginning of the sentence.
Does it end up with end up with LWA after that?
Oh,
yeah,
right.
I mean, you put introduce the name, you put LWA if you're going to abbreviate later on in parentheses after.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that looks good. What are your feelings, Eric?
I just might make the last paragraph. I might make it more paragraphs. Like I might end with the sentences of its own. We look forward to your assistance. The very last sentence, maybe its own. And I don't know. That's just me how I do it, but that's not right or wrong, really.
No, it's a matter of
you want to?
That's fine.
Oops! Again, I was too high.
I would just leave, just make that last sentence by itself. We look forward to your, there you go. Just sort of sets it up saying, do something, basically.
I see Mark Rivers' hands. Mark.
Hi, in the last paragraph, did we intentionally decide not to include the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee membership or members in that meeting?
No, they will be included, but that's the way the Rita wrote the letter. There was not a decision going into that part.
So does it make any sense to put it in there just as a reminder?
Because Rita is not here tonight and she did the final draft of the letter, I would just hesitate to change it without her being here.
Okay.
Already in the minutes from the meeting.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting, Mark, Becky should set up a meeting with you, a select board member, the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee. But is that you're saying add that into that sentence?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I don't think Rita would either, frankly. But that's either way. I don't care.
Whatever you want to do. I'm not going to push ahead against her edits. So you guys can do it. That's fine.
I'm okay with adding that piece in, if that was the intention anyway. So I think that,
So I guess we should just say members of the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee or something.
Or a member, even
no,
a member.
That's not what it said.
A member.
No, it was specific to Mark Rivers. Okay. And it was specific to the chairs of the committees. It wasn't just members of a group of people or anything. And
okay.
So let's say LWAC chair.
Yeah, LWAC chair, yeah.
Yeah, you could put that, and if there was a change, that would. Yeah.
Any other changes?
That's sorry to interrupt. That's at it's not the Lake Wyola Association. It's the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee.
Oh, that's right.
You don't have to change that up above. It was the Lake Wyola Association at that point, right? Or was it the advisory committee at the bottom of the page to the first page where there's
that was the association, because that was Donna who told us that they were not involved in any way.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure we have the right verbiage in the right place. Okay. Do I hear motion to approve the letter as amended? Or
so moved.
Okay, USDA. All right. I'll second that. Any further edits or questions at all, Eric? Okay, all in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace, O'Neill, aye. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now moving on to town closure. Town hall closure, I'm sorry.
It's just checking out who was sneaking into town hall. Hi, Ryan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay, so town hall closure, Becky. Do we have update?
What are people's thoughts? I know numbers are dropping dramatically. It was what, Marianne, it's dropped from like 30,000 to 11,000 cases in Massachusetts in the last week. Feeling that one more, 2 more weeks and then we would open might be just right. What do you guys think?
2 weeks would land us at the 14th, 15th.
Yep, 15th.
15th. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. If it's really up to the people in town hall, I would think you could do it now. Frankly, you could open it now, but I'm not opposed to 2 weeks if that would make people feel more comfortable. That's not a problem at all for me.
Okay, Melissa, what have you seen in Amherst? I mean, at Amherst.
Well, I will tell you an interesting reference point that I've seen, actually multiple places that have been referenced, is the wastewater in Boston. Apparently they test for COVID in the wastewater in Boston, and it has significantly dropped. It spiked and it has significantly dropped. What does that mean exactly? I'm not sure. Maybe it matches the numbers we're seeing dropping. So just as a reference, as with college, some colleges are starting remote for a week while people get on campus and kind of quarantine, isolate, to see if there's an uptick in cases. So I would be okay for another 2 weeks. After that, I think we really seriously do think about opening.
Yeah. No,
just because
that's why
we are so, rural and in that, there's not a huge number of people coming into town hall, like, hundreds a day. So,
no, but it's been very active. If we weren't closed, I think we would have had a lot of traffic. It was tax day today.
Yep.
People have been returning
beyond that. Yeah.
There's surveys. I probably answered the door myself about 20 times. So it has been active. So it's probably good. I think if you could just do 2 more weeks and then hopefully be done, I think we should be good. But
okay.
If you guys are okay.
Yep. We have to.
I'm okay with that.
We've been voting on that. So do I hear a motion to keep town hall closed for another 2 weeks to reassess on the 15th of February?
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. The next thing is the status on the appraisal. There is no update at the moment. Contact has been hit or miss, and I've been dealing with a couple of other things for town in the last couple of days, so I've played phone tag on that. I know Ryan's here for the internal transfer bond.
Ryan, are you there?
I am. Hi, everybody.
Were you on with us the whole time you were driving to the town hall?
I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, sometimes in life you have to take risks. And I was at home and I was like, I bet I can get to the town hall to print checks in time. So, and I, of course, went the proper.
You held the signal that long, so
Yeah, it was right after New Salem. I was like, it's either now or never. So I don't know if Becky has filled you in at all as to why we're doing the internal transfer, but I'm going to summarize it anyway.
Okay.
The town of Shutesbury obviously had borrowed funds to complete our broadband project. The joint decision amongst my office, the finance committee, and the wishes of those working on the broadband team were that we had this one remaining year of funds that we were going to borrow out for one more year, and then we would pay off in full FY23. I inadvertently didn't take that away from the meeting when I went back months later and actually then performed the task of paying off the debt. So with that being said, we paid off the debt. We very quickly after realized, oh no, I was going to borrow this for one more year. And in order to accomplish that, the money still has to be moved to cover the payment for that short period of time. So I have since gone out, borrowed for the remaining year. We secured the financing for that. but the DLS requires that we have this signed form just showing that we did move money internally to cover that interim period of time where the debt had been paid in full before the borrowing had actually gone into effect. So it's, in a way, it's a formality, but it really is just kind of to cover all of your bases.
Okay. And you need us to vote?
It just requires your signature, so a vote authorizing the signature would be appreciated.
Okay. Give me the title of the bond one more time, or the transfer, the name of it.
Advance of funds in lieu of borrowing report.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to do that? I'm not going to be able to repeat it tonight. Now my brain's kind of fried. Do I hear a motion to, Becky, say that one more time?
Advance of funds in lieu of borrowing report. So it's an internal transfer is what they called it.
All right.
So moved.
Any further questions for Ryan? No? Okay. All in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Awesome.
And
thank you very much.
Need it signed in the next couple of days or tomorrow, or?
I'm just a firm believer in the sooner the better, but don't come running in for it. I'll track you down if I don't have it signed.
All right, we'll make sure it gets signed.
And he works day and night, so.
Yeah, anytime, you just reach out. Thank you. Have a great night, okay?
Thank you, Ryan.
Sure.
And then town administrator update. Wow, everybody just got so big now because there are only 4 of us.
Like I said, it's been a busy week in town hall. People are paying their taxes. Ellen's tax collection report for this year has been just like it always is. So the COVID impact did not hit Shutesbury. It's been really cold. The police have been, were pretty busy over the weekend, but the traffic, we didn't have too many accidents. I think as we normally do, we try to keep them just on the Leverett side of the town line. So we didn't have as many as we could have over the weekend. Highway department worked unreal hours, 14 hours, I think, on Saturday, and 5 for cleanup on Sunday. So, you know, it's been busy town-wide. We're trying to work on the budget and move the finance committee along. As you all experience, the assessment formula still is taking up a lot of bandwidth in town. We've got another 4-town meeting coming up to make sure we stay busy, but it's not on a Saturday. That keeps throwing me off. It's next Thursday night. Are you both able to attend?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That'll be good. And personnel, things are coming together with our new land use clerk. We've had a couple people with COVID scares that have not panned out, which has been wonderful. But everybody's staying concerned and testing, which is the critical thing right now. I'm sorry, I think we're we're in pretty good shape, but opening the doors will be a good thing to do. People are ready for it. Townspeople are very patient when they need services, but it seems like there's a lot of tension in the air.
It's grating on a lot of people. It's starting to grate on a lot. You know, it's just getting tiresome and fatiguing, you know.
Yep. But we've had the rejuvenating volunteers and employees who have recently taken vacations coming back and telling us all about 90-degree temperatures. And the library programming is continuing to be amazing. So I think we're in pretty good shape. We have a big job in 2 weeks to determine what the date of town meeting is. We're going to have town clerk Grace Banish with us to help run calendars. She has been very involved with the election legislation. She has been reviewing all the statutes and all the legislation that was written and helping by adding her 2 cents and writing beautiful reports to Natalie Blay. And Natalie's office is taking her suggestions into conference to try to add some common sense to the bill, which is really good to have somebody with those skills who has the interest with a tedious election law. I don't think any of us go home and read election law at night, but Grace does. And I'm so exhausted after that meeting. I can't.
I know that was a lot.
Don't forget Tim's chapter 90.
Yeah, we
Tim's
can't forget
90.
chapter 90. So we have to vote.
We'll end on that. We'll end on the chapter 90 note.
Okay, so where are they? Okay, and because they were late, I didn't get them into your packet. The other big issue that's coming up is our capital requests are larger than I can remember. We have highway looking for a dump truck. We have the police looking for a new cruiser. We have the fire department looking for a new cruiser. We have the school wanting to make progress on the roofs and many other things. And we have a request from Town Hall that's really unusual. The financial team, including the accountant and treasurer, are requesting a new Vadar software. We haven't gotten new software in a very long time. So this is a big deal. It's a big expense. It's it'll be about 20 grand. It'll take time for our accounting team to set it up, but they're both Gail is proficient in Vadar. It'll be something new for Ryan. So there is a lot going on that'll all come together at our annual town meeting. And that list of capital items does not include a new library. And we might be learning about that in a couple of weeks. I know we're going to have the MBLC out here on the 11th. And
do you know what time yet? Marianne was going to get back to me just for work schedule.
Okay, I will ask her.
Yeah, just not important for this meeting. Just if you could just let me know. I just want to make sure
it's 11 o'clock.
I think it's 11.
11
yeah.
on the 11th.
Well, that'll be easy to remember.
Yeah, good to know.
Okay, thank you.
And that's my report.
So what are the chapter 90?
Okay, for chapter 90s, we have 2 reimbursements. Mm-hmm. The first one is Baker Road paving. Mm-hmm. For
that's the chute from Pelham Hill down by Jeff's house.
Yes.
That's the only paving on Baker Road.
From the top down to the pond. Yeah. So it was $18,382.74. Okay. And then the larger one, the reimbursement for Pelham Hill Road, is $131,685.10.
Becky, could you say it again, please?
Yeah. $131,685.10.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll email these to you, Linda.
Thanks. That'll be great.
Do I hear a motion to sign the 2 chapter 90 reimbursements for Tim?
So moved.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Becky, do those have a date that need to be signed, like tomorrow? I don't know if there's anything.
It's actually September 30th.
Okay.
Is the real hard date.
2020 or 2022?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Luckily.
Have some time. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
We
All
did
right.
have ones that were 2 years old, but that's another story.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor?
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy
That
your
really
evening.
was democracy at its best.
It was.
Thank you for driving the bus, Melissa. Thank you for driving the bus.
It was a scary, windy road, but you got us safely.
No, that was
you know, it's important for that school discussion to have discussion, for everybody to feel like they've been heard. And
oh, it really is. And it's complicated.
It is, and we've all been mixed into it. Most of us have been mixed into it for so long, you know, that
and it's hard to know what a right answer is.
Yeah.
You know, that's
right.
Right. There is no right answer. You can only do what you can try. And then, you know, if you don't try, you don't know.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Okay. Well, everybody have a good evening. Enjoy.
See y'all later.
See you later. Stay warm.
Oh yeah.
Stay healthy. Bye.
I'm going over to the wood stove as we speak.
Okay. Enjoy.
See ya.